Okay, welcome everybody. I'd like to call the regular Board of Education to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of
The United
the
States
United
of
States of
America
America
and to the republic
for which
for
it
which it
stands,
stands, one
one
nation,
nation, under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty
and
and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico. This is a symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
You got the camera off for them? Huh? I unmuted it though.
Please let the minutes show that there's 3 board members, Mr. Olguin, Mr. Cordova, and myself. I don't see any of the other ones. Frank Cordova said that he could probably be on the phone. Frank Gomez, I'm sorry, Frank. That he'd probably be on the phone. He was in Tucson with his father-in-law. So he was going to try to get on the phone, but he hasn't yet, so I don't know. Okay, entertain a motion for approval of agenda items.
So moved.
Who made the motion?
This is Gabe.
Gabe. Mr. Olguin made the motion. Second?
I'll second. This is Gilbert.
Okay, please show that Mr. Guadiana is on. Mr. Guadiana seconded. Any corrections to the agenda? Call for the vote. Mr. Olguin,
Yes.
Mr. Guadiana,
Yes.
Mr. Cordova,
Yes,
myself, yes, motion passes. Entertain a motion for approval of the minutes of September the 28th.
so move. Frank Cordova.
Motion by Mr. Cordova, second.
I'll second it. This is Gabe.
Second by Mr. Olguin. Any corrections to the minutes? Call for the vote. Mr. Olguin,
Yes.
Mr. Guadiana,
Yes.
Mr. Cordova,
Yes,
myself, yes, motion passes. Moves us to unfinished business. Mr. Mendoza,
Under item A, Mr. President, members of the board, review of status of school reentry. We have 2 people that are going to present on this. First, we'll have Joyce Varela, and then followed by Annette Acosta. At this time, Joyce, can you please come forward?
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. So my portion of the report will be short, as I will be turning it over to Annette, who will go into more detail. We are having to submit weekly reports to PED, and based on those reports that we are submitting, we are showing that we have an ample supply of PPE at each one of the schools. We are continuing to prepare for the school reentry based on the elementary toolkit that we received from the PED. We have not yet received the toolkit for secondary, as New Mexico PED is not yet allowing middle school or high school to return as hybrid. The mock school reentry drills are continuing, and so Annette Acosta is heading that up, so I'm going to go ahead and just turn it over to her so that she can report on what we're doing with the mock reentry drills. Ms. Acosta?
Can everybody hear me?
yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay,
Yes.
great. Good evening, President of the board, board members, Superintendent, and everybody else. Some of you may already know me, have worked with me. Some of you may recognize my name but didn't know who that person was, so indulge me for a minute. Let me introduce myself. I am Annette Acosta. I'm a licensed master social worker. I'm a 15-year district employee, and I've been in the field of and the profession of social work for 28 years. Let me start with a quote. COVID-19 challenges are like tall walls with a weak foundations. They'll fall when you dare to blow on them. So in thinking of these tall walls on weak foundations, we thought, what is our goal with this process? And we determined that our goal was to reduce the potential risks of contracting and spreading COVID-19 in our school systems. So why did we want to do this? Why would we look at this for school readiness? Other schools haven't. Other schools did what they needed to do just like we did to go in. But during the time of an international pandemic, global pandemic, prioritizing the health and safety of our students, our staff, and their families is absolutely paramount. We need to reopen our schools. We really need to, but we must do so safely. This school generation, their parents, their grandparents, and maybe even their great-grandparents have not experienced a pandemic in their lifetime. So working carefully and diligently and being flexible to the constant changes that science is finding and the results and their recommendations is critical. So now, how are we going to do this? Well, we're doing it by assessing, by planning, and by testing COVID-19 safe procedures throughout the entire school district, starting in the primary schools. This helps to ensure that we establish healthy, safe environments and can maintain healthy operations to reopen schools. But most importantly, is to keep our schools open. So where do we begin? We began with crisis management model. Crisis management model has aspects of preparing for, preventing, coping with, and recovering from almost any crisis. It also looks at being proactive rather than reactive and seeks to prevent or resolve an emergency at its earliest sign. Crisis management has 4 main stages that we considered and looked at, and those are prevention, preparedness, response and recovery, PPRR, prevention, preparedness, response and recovery. Okay, so now the question is, why COVID-19 school reentry drills? We were looking at readiness. Now we're looking at drills. Let me tell you, our schools are entrusted to provide safe and healthy learning environments. And by doing so, we must consider infection control and mitigation. And by considering infection control and mitigation, that process is a daunting, complex task. At any time, consider active shooter, that's complex and daunting, but even more so during a global pandemic. Also, the state of New Mexico Public Education Department requires every district in the state to have emergency operation plans. EOPs is what they're also called. Our EOPs are for preventative, protective measures to either stop an incident from occurring or reduce the individual risk of any of those threats. So we started the crisis management process by, 1, we assessed and anticipated. I sat with 2 principals at 2 different schools. We reviewed the daily functional procedures from the morning as a student steps on campus till the end of the day when they're stepping off our campus. We assessed those procedures for COVID-19 safety measures. We brainstormed worst case scenarios and we planned accordingly, keeping in mind we cannot plan for everything, but we can absolutely have a solid foundation. So when we did that, we looked at the following areas. We looked at bus loading and unloading. We looked at parent drop-off, school walkers. We looked at building entry, classroom entry, and after classroom entry, we looked at the transitions in the classroom, such as breakfast, lunch, recess, bathroom breaks, mask breaks, and then we also looked at dismissal, all through the lens of a COVID-19 mitigation strategies. After we did that, we created those plans. In those plans, we looked at the procedures and transitions, and we did initial walkthrough of the plans for the effectiveness and the flow of them. And then if we needed, we made modifications. Then we came to the testing of the plan. We ran the drill. I coordinated the drill and simulations at schools and had volunteer staff serving as actors. And mind you, the board members, we have some good actors up for an Oscar for their acting abilities. We also had identified staff, assessors, and evaluators who looked at those drills and the procedural processes with the lens of COVID-19 to assess what worked well, what did not work well, what can we do better. And we thought by taking these steps, it would help ensure that we could carry out our response plan in real life situation, not just in theory. And I know there's a few people on our board who understand that process. If they don't do a drill to act it out in real life, they don't know that it's really going to work. It sounds good on paper, but it doesn't work in real life. So once we finished the drill and simulations, we conducted a post-crisis debriefing analysis. In this process, we had the evaluators, we had the school principals, and we also had the teacher, whoever was the one that we did the drill with. We had custodians and looked at everything and did the debriefing process to make it even better than when we started. So now you ask, okay, that's all great and wonderful, Ms. Acosta. Where are we now? Where we're at right now is 2 schools have completed all the process from the planning assessment to the execution and debriefing. Central Elementary is reviewing the planning and execution of their procedures and modifying as needed. Hurley Elementary is transitioning to have those procedures applied to the rest of the school in the classes for school-wide practice. Bayard Elementary is in the assessment planning stage, really nicely transitioning into the creation of this plan and the drill. We should be running Bayard Elementary drill in approximately 2 weeks. Pre-K, talk about a daunting task. Talk about the amount of hours. Pre-K alone is complex, and what it requires is complex. So what we've done is Bayard, Central, and Hurley Elementary all are in the assessment planning stages, and they're also nicely transitioning to their creation of the plan, and one school is almost ready to execute the drill. I give pre-K probably 3 weeks from today. And we're also looking to sit down with the special education director, Melissa Minus, and review the procedures of each school, look at the needs of our special needs or special education students, and incorporate the two to the site-specific school plan so that our special needs students acclimate to the process and are kept safe throughout that process. We're also establishing a district and school site rapid response team. This is recommended per the New Mexico Public Education Department COVID-19's response toolkit, which an updated toolkit came out last month in September. In establishing these teams, we're further breaking it down to look at the responsibility checklists at all of those levels of team establishment. We're establishing and creating site-specific cleaning and disinfection checklists so that we ensure that we don't miss anything. Frequently touched surfaces, end of the day sanitizing, everything is there to be checked off to ensure that we catch it all. And it's being set up for teachers, custodians, secretaries, and nurses. We're also looking to schedule videotaping of our procedures, the drills that we were conducting. We're looking at videotaping these so that we can upload them and put them on our school district websites and conduct virtual assemblies. We want to do that as part of the social emotional learning aspect, because we know that kids are coming back when they do, and they're coming back with an idea of what school used to look like and how they used to run in a school, and it was so free. They need to see what it's like now and how it's changed. So those videos will go up. They'll be available for parents and students at any time, and virtual assemblies are looking to be scheduled and conducted. We're also looking at the isolation room. And why? We need to look at the isolation room because unfortunately, some of our students get to the drop-off temperature site. They clear the site, they're cleared to go into class, but those students develop symptoms while they're in the classroom. That can happen. So when it does, do we know exactly what we need to do? We know what it says on paper, but do we really know if it works? We need to know where it's at, what we're doing, who's staying with the student, who's contacting parents, how are we isolating the corridor of where that student came from. A lot of different things that we need to look at mitigation factors. So we'll do that and conduct a modified drill just to ensure that we can check off things and see that it flows. So now, where do we go from here? I vote for Cabo San Lucas and a vacation. But since that won't happen, let me tell you where we go from here. We complete the assessing, the planning, and execution of these drills in all primary schools by December 1. We complete the videotaping and uploading for virtual assemblies with the schools that are ready in their segments by October 30th. We begin virtual assemblies at each elementary school site and have assemblies completed by the end of the semester. Why? Because we anticipate that we hope to come back in January. All primary schools, we hope to have them complete the Meet the Helpers series, along with any other appropriate educational video by the end of the fall semester. These Meet the Helper series are CDC recommended videos and New Mexico Department of Health recommended videos. I have seen them, and I personally believe they are very good. They show kids at all ages what a virus is, what COVID is, what's appropriate mask wearing, social distancing, in a very appropriate developmental way, so that these kids won't feel the anxiety and not understand or know what this all is. So, on that note, I know that in past board meetings I've heard, hold on, what are you all doing for our social emotional health, for the mental health of our students? Let me address that issue right here. Since we started and the mandates came down that we needed to conduct social emotional learning virtually, and when we come hybrid, we'd be doing them in classrooms. Right now, we are been offering those social emotional curriculum virtually. We have family resources that are being offered also virtually or hand copy, depending on what the need is. And really exciting is the school counselor at Bayard Elementary, Cheryl Fowler, has established a student support center. I've been there, I've viewed it. It's, wow, it's really good. And in her student support center, she's made it available by appointment only, mind you, for COVID mitigation reasons. But she's made it available by appointment, district-wide, for individuals or small groups, pending COVID mitigation strategies, for counseling, for support. We're also conducting home visits as the referrals come in from principals. Some of you might think, really, a home visit? Unfortunately, yes, a home visit, but we are doing our very best to keep ourselves safe, as well as those who we go and knock on the door to visit. And we are triaging the referrals that come in for higher levels of care in the community, because there are situations that are occurring that really surpass what we can do in the schools, and we need a higher level of care. So let me go out on a limb by saying I believe that we all agree that schools, and in this case, Cobre schools, play a critical role in supporting the whole child, not just their academic achievement. Aside from a child's home, no other setting has more influence on a child's health and well-being as we do in the schools. We provide educational instruction. We provide supports for the development of social emotional skills. We address nutritional needs, and we even facilitate physical activity. And we do this all with the attempts of doing it in a safe, healthy environment. So, Cobre Consolidated Board members, President and Superintendent, please hear me now. When we consider the factors to reopen our district, our schools for our students and families, let us consider the following variables. Transmission rates in the state, county, and neighboring counties. Assess our capacity to implement appropriate mitigation measures. Assess the totality of impact of opening schools hastily versus thorough planning. And also looking at our commitment to implementing, supporting, and ensuring that the key mitigation strategies are enforced. It is now, after 8-9 months of this pandemic, they now have found globally that mask wearing, proper social distancing, proper and appropriate hand washing, and respiratory etiquette combined with cleaning and disinfecting helps to mitigate the contracting or spread of this virus. So in conclusion, I now ask you, is Cobre Schools ready to reopen? Let me go back to that quote. COVID-19 challenges are like tall walls with weak foundations. They fall when you dare blow on them. It is our ultimate goal of reopening schools safely and staying open in a COVID world. We must really vitally adopt and diligently implement plans that establish safe environments and maintain healthy operations. Why? To slow the risk of spreading or contracting COVID-19 in our schools. So when we start to think about those tall walls on weak foundations, let us consider building a house on sand or building a house on solid rock. Where will those tall walls stand firmly when Mother Nature wreaks her wrath? The sand or the rock? With proper planning, we know it's the solid rock. So, Cobre Consolidated Schools, house with proper planning will not fall. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Acosta. This is Mr. Sepulveda.
Yes.
And I really want to thank you for your presentation. It was very, very good.
Thank
And
you.
just looking at our neighboring counties in the state, we hit the highest number in the state a few days ago with the virus. And those are some of the things that we really need to look at before we really consider opening. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, and you're absolutely right. We really need to look at those. And it's quite unfortunate because whether we believe in the process or not, if we did what we were asked to do by government, we would slow that process and possibly be able to reopen fully. I can only wait.
We could have been out of it already.
Any questions?
I have a question, Mrs. Acosta, but first
Yes,
let me say this at first though. This is the first really demonstrative presentation I've had that gives me assurance of going in the right direction. I started going to the schools recently and had heard about you and what you were doing and was very impressed. And
Thank
now
you.
even more so. I
Thank
think,
you.
I think what you have laid out is a good way to look at things and build on what the existing circumstances are by actually viewing them. That seems to be an interesting concept. But one brief side note, though, you mentioned Central, Bayard, and Hurley elementaries, but you didn't mention San Lorenzo. Where do they fall into this?
San Lorenzo happens to fall into the last school, not by choice or request, just within the process. They happen to fall into being the last school that will go down and begin the planning and assessment and execute the drills. We started with the big school, not purposely, which was Central, and then went to a small school of Hurley. We're now at a big school with Bayard, and we'll finish with the small school of
San Lorenzo.
San Lorenzo. But that doesn't take away, we haven't forgotten secondary schools.
Oh, no, I know that, but in terms of the elementary schools, that was
Yes.
absent. But did you observe how the teachers manage the online instruction via one monitor versus two monitors versus presentation materials, or was that something outside of your scope?
That was outside of my scope. I've not observed that. I believe that would be probably Mr. Carrillo's, principal's scope, maybe Mrs. Varela's. So I couldn't speak to that one.
Okay, and the difference of what you're doing can be summed up in just that it is a global look at the schools, not a piecemeal thing. You go have each school figure out the things. You're developing a consistent view and a way to address our actions as we go forward. I really appreciate that, and I'd like to see that elevated to the highest level you can, including taking a look at the technical part of it, the technology part of it, and doing something similar, taking a look at what teachers have. We have, my kids receive emails at 1 o'clock in the morning from teachers. They're working hard. They're working really, really hard. And I'm incredibly impressed by what I see out at the schools. But I don't think we're going far enough to help them standardize things, to make things something that they can relate to each other on. How do you do this? Well, we're supposed to do it this way. Rather, I do it this way, you do it that way. So your effort of creating a standardized process is greatly appreciated. And I hope we replicate that in all the aspects going forward, whether it's sports as well, or technology, whether it's lunches, all those things.
This process can actually be implemented across the board. That's why I chose crisis management model. One, because I'm skilled and knowledgeable in the area, because that's basically all I've done 28 years worth of work. But I knew that this process would look at many aspects of the response part and the preparedness. So it can be carried over to cafeteria, to maintenance, to sports, to all of it. It is a daunting task. It's not easy, but it can be done.
Well, the two analogies you put forward, one, the high walls work and the weak foundation, and proactive versus reactive. I think we're on the weaker end of both of those. And I hope we can move more towards the stronger foundation and being proactive rather than reactive.
I'm seeing the process take its course, and it seems like there are staff who are working from fear.
Yeah.
But if we look at it from an emotional, psychological point of view, what we see is that when we can educate our staff on everything that this is, and we've practiced these drills, their anxiety level is really dropping. They're feeling more secure that, you know what, I can do this, because they're seeing it. So it's been a good process.
And I've heard
Daunting, but good.
I've heard that comment from your experience there, giving people a lot better satisfaction with the readiness assessment. So thank you
Awesome.
very much.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Ms. Acosta, this is Gabriel again. I have
Yes,
a
sir.
couple of questions.
Sure.
So I would echo what Mr. Guadiana said. It's great to finally see a timeline. You know, it's something that we hadn't seen as a board yet, knowing that our target date to start school, at least in a hybrid model, was September 1st. So my first question would be, you know, when did we start the CMM planning process?
I don't have the records with me because I have all my notes in a notebook, but I'm going to go off of recollection. And if my mind doesn't mess me up, because I am getting old, I believe we started the process, what was it? The end of August, the end of August, because I worked through my Labor Day weekend and Labor Day. So it was the end of August. And I might tell you that working the process, as your notes, the report I sent you, I don't know if you received it, but hopefully you received a report. That report would have showed you that the first process was conducting research. So to conduct the research with all those sites that I listed in your report, that alone took a lot of time because it took a lot of reading and cross-referencing and note-taking, and then looking to apply through the district. So it wasn't a quick, easy process. It will be if we have another pandemic.
Great. So that sort of leads into my next question. You know, this may be for Mr. Mendoza. You know, considering that we had a target date to start our hybrid school of September 1st, why did we wait till August to start this process? You know, why didn't we start it months ago? Why did we wait so long if we knew that our target date was around Labor Day weekend?
If I may answer that first, please. I can tell you that I believe one of the reasons was because, as I mentioned in the presentation and I mentioned in your report, the process of this pandemic and the information that is coming out is sporadic. It's not consistent and it's not well developed. So the dissemination of that information, it's not consistent. So as we go along the process, I almost feel like a puppet for the information, one of those marionettes, because information comes out, recommendations come out, then they change, then it's updated. So as that process happened, and we were discussing keeping our kids safe, that's how this process came up. It's not recommended out there. I've not found any research, even through the PED department, that says, have your district do this to ensure mitigation strategies are appropriate and kids will be safe. Just in our discussion of how to keep Cobre kids safe, that's how this came about. I said, crisis model does it. I've worked crisis 28 years. Frank Gomez knows. That's how he and I have worked together. You may do it also, Mr. Holguin, through the forest fire stuff. So when that came up and I said, this is how we could do it, because this is how we'll see, does what we have on paper really work in real life? And it's been an eye-opening, progressive process. That's the reason I know. Mr. Mendoza, if you'd like to answer.
Yes, thank you, Annette, and appreciate all the work you've done. Mr. Holguin, this is an ongoing process. We started in late March when we were turned out. Our hands are tied with the PED. They were the ones giving us the toolkits, working with that. Jose and company were also involved in the preparing and answering and filling out all the questions. It was not until we decided to see what the toolkit was how it was gonna affect us for our re-entry into the elementary that Annette Acosta came into place, because we needed someone with experience as she has, and she's done a darn good job. But Mr. Holguin, this is not a process that we've just been sitting on our, not doing the work, but our hands are tied from the Ped Department throughout, because they change from one day. A good example is, we're writing all the requirements on face mask, mouth covers, and so forth. When they decided, they said that just a plain old face covering, like a welder's or a grinder's mask, was appropriate for elementary kids to do it. So we're writing it into our plans, and boom, they come, CDC changes their mind, Mexico, and it's an ongoing thing. So you can see that the school districts are really, the elementary schools are buying and really cooperating with the net. And of course, Jose Carrillo and Joyce's direction, they're really going at it, and I totally support. The next one is getting the high school ready, but we don't have a start date for the high school. We don't even have the toolkit done and presented to us from the Ped Department at this point. So I'm telling you, Mr. Holguin, we're actively working. As soon as Annette comes in, we always look at what she's got and we go forward. So
What, if I may interject here? Mr. Mendoza?
yes, go ahead.
I wanted to throw out there also that is correct. Things change so quickly. That's why I said I feel like a marionette puppet, because one day I'm dancing here and the next day I'm dancing there, because they change federally all the way down to the state. But there are key things now that are not changing. And that's why I threw out to consider those factors to reopen, and looking at the commitment for the key mitigation strategies, because those things have been seen and found now over the 9 months, they're not changing. They're finding that there are real data to support those mitigation strategies really do work. Maybe not to stop you getting from COVID, but to lessen the risk of spreading it and getting it. And high school is definitely, and junior high is on the block to do this, because that one's even a harder process. That one is almost like pre-K in the sense of, wow, we have all this freedom and social butterfly nest that we've got to work with. So I'm glad that might come up a little later on.
So if I may, I
Sorry?
would just, in response to that, I would just say that I do understand that this is a very dynamic situation. I understand it's unprecedented, what's going on in the nation and here in our school district, and we're reacting to that. But I also would like to know, how are our neighboring school districts able to return with the hybrid model? Did they go through a similar process like this? Did they start planning earlier? What was their successes? What were their successes? And have we talked to them? Have we reached out to them? How are they able to open up in a hybrid manner and we aren't?
Mr. Gabe, with all due respect, I cannot talk about what other districts are doing in the public, and I noticed Mr. Guardiana is a little upset at that, but I'll be glad to talk to you one-on-one, and I'll have Dr. Carrillo talk to you about it.
And if I could interject on that, we have not actually gone to the outlying districts, but in planning for pre-K, we have utilized, in your report, you'll see we have utilized somebody who's out of the Central Region office, and we've gone to the WNMU's program, because we wanted to see what's working and what's not working. As far as other districts, I don't know what they're doing, but I would wonder, did they really truly walk through the process? Or are they just hastily opening and modifying as they go? I told Mr. Mendoza this, I prefer that we don't hastily open and modify as we go. Let's do that for math and reading with our special ed kids, but let's not do that with a pandemic when it's coming to a life or death in families or the child themselves. So I can tell you that's why we chose to do it this way, but I'm not sure if others have.
And I'm not suggesting that we do it exactly the way that any of our neighbors did, but I'm suggesting that, as schools have opened up, there's got to be some sort of database, some sort of knowledge of best management practices that are working for those school districts that, we should be sharing across school district. It's not hidden information or anything. We should be learning from their mistakes and their successes, and to help us to provide the safest plan that we can for our school district.
I would agree 100% with that. And more so because what I am experiencing personally, not professionally, is the forthcoming of people to voluntarily say, I've been exposed, or I tested positive, or we need to conduct contact tracing. What I'm seeing personally, they're not willing to cop to that. They're not willing to be forthcoming. And it's quite angering and upsetting, because they're risking my personal family's life, my wellness, but they're not thinking that. So I could only hope that districts would be willing to be that forthcoming. But I do question, we do have Gadsden who just had a death of a teacher for COVID. That's right there in our backyard. What didn't work? What happened? Was it contracted at their district on school? Was it out in the public but brought to the school? I'm curious, with all the numbers of cases that are coming up that the governor puts out there, what's not working? Why are we having the cases? Is it community or school? I'm just as curious as you are. I'm just a little busy trying to get this together than to find that out. Anything else?
Yeah, I was going to say something to that effect, is that when somebody has it, they're not willing to come forward and say, I've had it, or anybody else come forward and saying they had it. They kind of keep it to themselves, and now tracing who has been in contact with those people, we don't know, because we don't know who that person was. And that is the problem that we're seeing across the state, or maybe across the nation, because they're not telling us who has and who hasn't. And that is a big problem, because contact tracing is going to be a big problem with us trying to find out who has and who hasn't. And have we been around them? Who knows? Mr. Carrillo.
Mr. President, members of the board, first of all, I want to start by thanking the board members who have genuinely been supportive and responsive and taking our Cobre community into consideration when you make the decision not to open up the schools. Ms. Acosta just mentioned what happened in Gadsden. Gadsden went ahead and shut down their schools for their staff because they had one staff member who died due to COVID-19. And I want to thank you, because you made the right decision. One student, one staff member, one family member, one community member is one too many. And I want to thank you for being supportive and allowing us to come back when we do come back in a way that is safe for all. Having said that, I want to go back to Mr. Holguin's question about when this started. We started back when we shut down. We haven't let up. We've been working diligently with PD. We've met with all the superintendents from all the different districts on a weekly basis, sharing ideas, sharing what they're doing and what they're finding out as they're opening up. So it's not like we're in a silo, just working by ourselves. We had a meeting today. We had a meeting today with the superintendents, with a coalition, and sharing ideas and what's going on and what's happening. So that's why I want to thank you for making the right decision and not have us rushed into opening and getting somebody sick. So having said that, we have been nonstop. We have been ordering PPE, getting PPE. We have been stockpiling. We have been making every effort to ensure that our students are safe when we do decide to come back. We have reallocated funding. You know, we're one of the smaller districts that really do not get a lot of funding. You know, the CARES Act funding that we received was not a lot of money. You know, I've heard board members talk about, why didn't we use some of our other funds from bonds, which we can't. We gotta follow procurement. Why, you know, we spend close to $500,000 on technology devices to be able to provide all our students. And what we received from CARES Act wasn't even half of that, okay? So for us to be able to be ready to open up in a safe manner, it has taken this time. Every day, things change on a daily basis, okay? So again, I want to close by thanking you for making the right decisions and continue to be positive and being supportive of what we're doing, okay? Instead of criticizing and looking at what have we not done, please keep in mind, there's a lot that has been done. Thank you.
Dr.
I
Carrillo,
would like to
and
add
I would just say that I appreciate that information, and I feel like that's probably the most thoroughest briefing that we've received as a board on what has been done and what hasn't been done for the past months. I mean, I appreciate what you just said. You know, that's important information when we, as a board, consider this decision, and it's something that's been lacking, in my opinion, for the past numerous board meetings.
And I'd also like to comment that Annette's process of crisis management, crisis response has been around for a long time. And a lot of what she's stated could have started much earlier, as early as March. Yes, things change and better information comes along, and those can be adopted. But the fact that this is the first effort that really does a systemic view of what our needs are, I will be glad to offer the praises to anybody who does the kind of work that is being done. But when we get reassurances that, oh, the computers are coming in, we got them on, we're next in line. Oh, we got all our stuff ready. We're gonna start up October 8th. And we aren't even remotely close by October 8th. And finding that out by happenstance, as opposed to these are the challenges we face. We never hear about what it is that is a shortcoming that we can help participate. We never participate in budget to understand what our financial resources are. Even though that is our responsibility, we don't have the knowledge to even be an active member on providing additional resources if we can. There's a lot of systemic issues. It's not just administration, and it is the board as well. The board does not know where the resources are going, how they're spent. The board is listening on a one-to-one basis as opposed to an in-session basis on things having to do with personnel, the allocation of staff, deciding whether to get contractors to come in and clean up versus training our own staff and getting the proper equipment. I hear.
Let me correct you on that, Mr. Guadiana. We cannot meddle in personnel, and that's where you're coming from, personnel,
it's
and we
not.
cannot meddle in personnel, Mr. Guadiana. I'm
We
sorry
can-
to say.
Well, there's a couple of things. One, as some people do meddle in personnel, but that's not what I'm advocating. I'm advocating knowing whether there's sufficient staffing, not the individuals hired like some other people, but knowing the level of staffing if it's adequate to meet our needs. That is our responsibility. And we exercise that responsibility by oversight of the budget, which we don't do. So it's not all administration's fault. A lot of it falls squarely on us. And with that, the teachers and the students and the parents are suffering greatly. I mean, we came out with a system that doesn't have teachers able to look at their classroom, listen to what's going on and present information very effectively. I've mentioned that time and time again, and it still exists. When we get into actually the participation in classroom as well as virtual, they need to be able to move around the classroom. They need to be able to have a camera that follows them. They need to have microphones. I don't see that happening. as it is, the sprayer that we're talking about seemed to be like pulling teeth. But now, even from what I understand, the sprayer that we're buying is a plug-in one, which is really going to make it, that kind of shows where we are in terms of making decisions.
I'm going to say one more thing, Mr. President, members of the board. The district administration and staff are not looking for praises. One of the things that we all know is that everybody has been working very hard. And I would recommend that we work from a asset perspective instead of a deficit perspective. I think that being positive and looking at what has really been done, because there's been a lot that has been done, that yes, we can improve and we're working on that. But I think that we need to start looking at the approach on how we're dealing with a lot of the things that are happening, because this is all new for everybody. And I, again, appreciate those of you who genuinely have taken the opportunity to provide the feedback, the genuine feedback and positiveness for us to continue to move forward for the safety of our kids, our staff, and our community. Thank you, sir.
In closing, I'd just like to mention that you mentioned, as Mr. Holguin pointed out, was one of the first times we've heard such initiative. I don't go talk to Mr. Mendoza or anybody else because I'm not supposed to do that on a constant basis. Some other board members do, and we don't get that information. And if
You're welcome to go, you're welcome to go talk to him anytime. His door is open. Any of you can go talk to him.
Negative. This is supposed to be information that's supposed to come out in the board meetings and be public information. We violated the Open Meetings Act for the first 2 years that I was here, and now we've circumvented it by doing one-to-one meetings and discussing the important things that all the public should know. So to expect to get recognition for the effort when it's not shared with us, nor are the circumstances, is kind of a victim of the process that some of our board members have taken, which is they get the information and we don't. That's unfair.
You're including me there. Okay?
What's that?
And you're including me there because I do visit with Mr. Mendoza.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, I am including you. Absolutely.
Yes, I do meet with Mr. Mendoza. And we are not violating no Open Meetings Act, no nothing.
Well,
and you can go talk to him anytime, and any of that information is public information. You can go online and you can see it. The same with you, Gabe. You can go see it. It's there, and I know you can.
I'm differing with that, and with that, I am preparing a letter that's going to the Attorney General, because I do feel that we're at the point of dysfunction that really jeopardizes the safety of students and parents and the community at large.
I don't think so. And you can go ahead and send your letter, and I sure hope that the Attorney General comes down.
I do too. At least that
I do too.
If I may, with all due respect, this is Annette again. If I may, with all due respect, jump in here just to ask Mr. Holguin, did you get all your questions that you want? You said you had a few questions you wanted to ask me. So I just want to make sure that you were able to afforded the opportunity to ask me.
Yes, ma'am, I did. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, it's time to move on. Mr. Mendoza.
Again, I want to thank all the board members for doing that. And just a quick response, Mr. Guardiana, when you write letters, we can counter with letters, okay? So I take that as a threat, but that's your right to do it. But I can write a letter also. So once we get the response from the Attorney General's office, wherever you send it, we involve Ms. Helms and our attorneys. So that's okay. And I would like to move on, and at this time, the next item on the agenda is.
Let me
the
respond
Cobre High
to
School
your
athletic
statement rather than
presentation.
it being unilateral. I don't see it as a threat. I see it as a responsibility. And you do what you want to do, but I'm concerned about the health and the operation of the school district and the board's operation with its legal responsibilities. we're not there. We're not there. It's clear.
Mr. Mendoza, go ahead. You're muted, Mr. Mendoza.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, Cobre High School athletic presentation. And of course, it says action items pending the governors and then the NMMA instructions. Okay, before we get started, Nelson and Sandra and Maureen, I also understand you have students that want to speak or a student, and that's fine. But we know that the action recommended by the governor is that no athletic competition will take place until January, and we all need to keep that in mind. We can practice, we can go with the pods on a 1 to 9, so that's being said. And at this time, Nelson, Sandra, Maureen, it's all yours, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mendoza. Mr. President and board members, thank you for giving us this time again. I just want to go back and thank Annette. You know, she did help us a lot here at Central in some of this planning. That being said, athletics has been doing some similar planning as well. We were provided with a big packet of information. I don't know if you had an opportunity to go through it. In that packet, like Annette has stated earlier, there's a lot of paper. It's very, very different to be able to see something that's on paper and then actually to be able to see it. So in that same spirit of being able to see things, we did provide a video to you guys. We will present it here in a few minutes, but just want to add to what Mr. Mendoza had just said. So the state did cancel all athletic competition in the state. So there won't be any competitive sports this coming fall, for the fall or winter. They're looking at possibly getting started again in January. That being said, we do know that there is a big difference between competitive sports and having pods. And what pods essentially are is a situation where we have a 9-to-1 situation where one coach and 9 student athletes are able to practice. They're able to use certain equipment. But with all that comes a lot of mitigation. And in our presentation today, you will see that we want to present that we are ready to go whenever the board deems it safe and ready for us to start. So we want to make sure that we convey that today, that we can show you that when we are ready to start, we can start, that we are ready to go based upon the decision that is made. So there was a few things that from our previous meeting that needed to be added or was suggested to be added, and that would be to our NMA guidelines, our Cobre plans. And that would be this document here. It says Cobre plans. In those Cobre plans, what we have included is a failure to adhere. And I think that came from Mr. Holguin. And the failure to adhere kind of gives some guidelines as to what happens, what are the steps taken if a student athlete doesn't follow the rules or if a coach doesn't follow the rules. So we did talk about that. So failure to adhere, all participants must adhere to the guidelines. The first time is a warning. This is for students. The second time is dismissal from practice for a day. And the third time is dismissal from practice for 30 days. If you're a coach, you will have a warning for the first time. The second time is dismissal for a week. And the third time is dismissal indefinitely. We've also included in our packet today a list of coaches with a schedule of times where they will be having to COVID test. Maureen, would you like to add a little more to that? Because I know that was something that you came up with.
We just think it's important that we do some continuous testing, so that it's not just one and done. It's a set schedule. That way we can keep up with and make sure that our coaches are still healthy and not infected and not spreading it to our athletes. And so we just came up with a set schedule where right now it's every 2 weeks. We are more than willing to look at that if that's something that you all feel we need to do that more often. But we thought every 2 weeks was a good period. We'd get half tested 1 week and then the other half tested the next week, and just kind of rotate it so that we do have a set schedule and we know when they will be tested and when we can expect the results.
Thank you, Maureen. That's also included inside within these Cobre plans. We've included that. What I also wanted to show was an example of what pods may look like and what a schedule would look like. And that would be in this form of example. It says example on the front page. Now, of course, this is an example. These are names that we had gathered from the summer. These are the kids that were participating at that time. These are some of the coaches that were participating. But if you notice, we have only included them in this example twice a week. They would be working out for about 1 hour to 2 hours a week with their pods. And these pods do not change. The coaches do not change, and the students do not change. If there happens to be a change or we're needing to have a change, then we would probably wait 7 to 10 days before we made that change. So we would have a pause, we would have a break before we made any type of changes within these pods. We also have the different entrances and locations. They're also kind of marked. We gave you an aerial photo of the football field. It doesn't show the softball field, but the softball field is one of those fields that we could use, and so is the baseball field. There are different entrances. At any time, there would be no more than 9 people per entrance. And those entrances, as you can see, have been, or the field has been cut into 4s. So each pod would remain on their quarter of the field. If we happen to have or need more, then we would utilize the softball field and baseball fields in order to accommodate the 9-to-1 and making sure that our kids are being social distant. Nothing has changed from the last time. Of course, every student has to have their mask all the time. Every coach has to have their mask all the time. Doesn't matter if they're running sprints or running a mile. They're going to have to do that. In addition to that, we've also included a bathroom and a bathroom cleaning schedule. We would obviously, if we were able to go, we would fill it out to make sure that the people that were responsible are on that schedule, and that schedule will be posted at all times. If we happen to utilize the weight room, what we have done is we've utilized a small gym, and we've only put 5 stations in there. Okay, though that would allow us to be able to clean and sanitize that at a much easier, and we would eliminate the amount of people in there. So it's also just be a 9-to-1. That same pod would be in there. Now, if we are not ready for opening up the weight room, that is okay. Like I said, we want to make sure that you guys understand that when we are ready to go, or when the decision is made that we are ready to go, that we have thought about and have the sanitation and mitigation plans in place.
Mr. Diaz, I just want to add also with the testing, we are going into week 2 of our rotation. We did start that testing schedule last week, so half of our coaches have already been tested. The other half will get tested this week. We already implemented that. That's not something that we waited to implement. We have already implemented that.
Also, we've, you have the rotation schedules in there. So that's included in your packet. But like in the spirit of what Mrs. Acosta was saying, you know, it's easy to see these things on paper. So what we have done is we have created a short video. We're going to want to try to present it to you guys at the moment, and then afterwards I'll take some questions, and then we'll give Toya and Dino an opportunity to present what they're wanting to present and hear their voices. So at this
Mr.
time,
Diaz, Mr.
yes,
Diaz,
sir.
could I have a question first, please?
Yes, sir.
You said the weight room. I thought that the New Mexico Activities Association or the PED, I can't remember which one, had said that they couldn't be in an enclosed building.
No, sir, that's incorrect. At this point, weight rooms are open to 25% of capacity. We're going above and beyond that to only allowing a 9-to-1 situation if we so choose to go in that route. And it's okay if at this moment we don't choose to use the weight room. We just want to make sure that you're aware that when the time comes, we're ready.
Okay.
And one more question along those lines. Aren't we limited to 4 pods indoors? And you said there was 5 stations of the weights?
So what we're talking about with the 4 stations here is this is outside on the football field. If we were to utilize the weight room, it would only be 1 pod in there.
Okay, thank you.
So at this moment, Mr. Burnett is setting up a presentation for us. He will be presenting. So just give us a minute and we'll get that going.
As you guys exit your vehicles, make sure you guys keep your masks on, stay 6 feet apart. You'll see some black lines. Make sure you guys keep that social distancing. Follow the lines, please. I'll be taking your temperature and asking you some questions. 97.8. Have you had a fever?
No, sir.
Have you had a cough?
No, sir.
Sore throat?
Nope.
Shortness of breath?
Nope.
Close contact or cared for someone with COVID-19?
No, coach.
Thank you. When you walk onto the field, you'll see some cones out there. Make sure we stay on the end zone cones and pick a cone and stay by that cone. Make sure you keep your mask on. 97.9. Robert, have you had a fever?
No, sir.
Have you had a cough?
No, sir.
Sore throat?
No, sir.
Shortness of breath?
No, sir.
Close contact or cared for someone with COVID-19?
No, sir.
Thank you. Make sure you keep your mask on as you go onto the field. How's it going, Adrian?
Good.
98.1. Have you had a fever?
No, sir.
Cough?
No, sir.
Sore throat?
No, sir.
Shortness of breath?
No, sir.
Come in contact or care for anybody with COVID-19?
No, sir.
Thank you. On the field, make sure you guys keep your mask on. How's it going, Johnny? 98. Have you had a fever?
No, sir.
Cough?
No, sir.
Sore throat?
No, sir.
Shortness of breath?
No, sir.
Come in contact with or care for someone with COVID-19?
No, sir.
Thank you, sir. Make sure you're on the field and make sure you keep your mask on.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Marine.
Hello.
98.4. Have you had a fever?
No,
Cough?
no, sir.
Sore throat?
No, sir.
Shortness of breath?
No, sir.
Come in contact or care for someone with COVID-19?
No, sir.
Thank you. On the field, make sure you keep Come on up. How's it going?
Good, good, good.
I'm gonna check your temperature here. Right now you're showing above 100 degrees. I'm gonna have you sit in the shade for a while. We'll take it again, but if it doesn't come down, I'm gonna have to send you home. Did you come in your own vehicle or did someone bring you?
I came in my own vehicle, Coach.
Okay, so we'll have you sit in the shade for a little while. We'll check it again before I send you home. But if it stays high, we're gonna send you home. You might have to go see a doctor. For sure, I'll be calling your parents to let them know that you had a high temperature when I gauged it, and we'll go from there and we'll figure out how to get you back over here.
Thank you, Coach.
You got it, Nelson. I'll be with you right now. Hey guys, thanks for showing up today. Just a reminder, when you guys park in the parking lot, as you're exiting, make sure you guys' masks are always on. Make sure you guys follow the lines. We'll always do the same checks that we did today. Coming back for other days, this is gonna be station number 1. You guys are pod number 1. You guys are assigned to stations number 1. So this quarter, the field will always be your designated area. You guys need to stay in this area. We're gonna start today off with a dynamic stretch. First one we're gonna do is a regular just knee hug to lunge. Knee hug to lunge with the left. Out, we're gonna do it for 10 yards. And once you get to the 10-yard line, you guys go jog through the 20. Ready? Oh, when I say ready, you guys go give me a double clap. Ready? Ready. One more time. Ready? Ready. Here we go. Go. Good. Nice and easy. Slow, easy stretch. Get your guys' muscles warmed up. We've been sitting down for 6 months. It's gonna take a while. It's not a race, nice and easy. Then jog it out for 10. Make sure you guys stay at your cone on the other side over there. I don't know what the kids feel like, huh? Going back, we'll do 10 soldiers. Hands out in front of us. We'll come up, try to get our toes all the way up to our fingertips, 10 yards, and then after the 10, you jog through the goal line. Ready? Go. Yep. Job. Jog it out. Good job. Way to stay by your cones. Way to keep that distance between you. Okay, so we're going to start off. We've done our dynamic stretch. You guys are nice and warm. We're going to jump into our passing tree. So this person that's at this cone right here is going to be the first one to run the route. And you guys will just shuffle over. You guys will run your route from here, catch the ball, bring it back to me, and go around and get back in line. And we'll just keep shuffling through. Everybody keeps their cone. First route is just a simple 5-yard hitch. And quarterback's going to be over there. I'll be quarterback for today. It'll be always your inside foot leg is up. We're gonna snap the ball. I'm gonna say ready, ready. I'm gonna say set, go. You're gonna take off for 5 yards. Break down. Just sit right here. Catch the ball. We tuck it. Run for about 5-10 yards. Come back. Bring the ball back to the quarterback, and then you get back in line. Any questions? Everybody good? Okay, here we go. Check your first. Ready, ready. Ready. So go. Nice. Tuck that ball away, get up the field, run. You guys shuffle on down. Robert's up next. Ready, ready. So go. Nice. Thank you, sir. Adrian, you're up next. Ready, ready. So go. Nice. Tuck that ball away high and tight. John, you're up next. Ready, ready. So go. Nice. That's right. Marine, here we go. Ready, ready. So go. Good job. Tuck that ball away. Get up on field. Good job. Hey, good job today. Thank you guys for showing up. Go ahead and take a knee real quick so we can talk about a couple of things before I let you guys go today. Just quick reminders. We're going to always enter the same way we did today, and we're going to exit. The way we exit today will always be done the same way. I'll dismiss you guys one at a time. Before I let you guys go, how are things going? How are classes going? Anybody having any problems with classes? Johnny?
I'm struggling with my history.
With your history?
Yeah.
I know I was checking grades, and I know there's a lot of you are having a hard time. I know Mr. Benfield could be really hard sometimes, but he's just reach out to him. Do you have his email address?
Yes, coach.
You do? Okay, so make sure you reach out to him. Make sure you're getting on class, doing all the things that he's asking you to do, all the requirements. And if you're still having problems, reach out to him. I know he'll work with you. I know. Okay, so I'm going to dismiss you guys. When I dismiss you, it's going to be one at a time. From the cone, we'll start off with Maureen. She'll go to the sanitation site. She'll sanitize, get her stuff, head to the parking lot, get in her vehicle. Make sure that we're not staying in the parking lot, hanging out with each other. We got to keep that social distance even when we're not during practice time. Once you guys are on campus, we keep that social distance. So we'll start with Maureen here. Maureen, you're going to be the first one to leave. Go sanitize, grab your stuff, and head to your vehicle. You guys can shuffle on down to the next cone. Go ahead, Johnny. We'll see you, Adrian. Thanks, Robert. We'll see you. Have a good one. Thank you. We'll see you, Chuck.
Thanks, coach.
Thank you.
You can cut it. So yes, so a picture tells 1,000 words. I think that was the approach that we were trying to take. As you can see, this is just one situation. Obviously, first and foremost, before we go forward, let's give our actors a round of applause and Maureen for catching that ball. Yeah, I'd like to have a little fun with it, but just so you can see that we have put a lot of thought into our processes, our mitigation, how we're going to handle different situations. Obviously, we couldn't show you everything. I mean, there's many different things, but we wanted to make sure that you understood that we are taking sanitation, the kid safety, mitigating the situation of COVID as much as we can. So we have taken a lot of things into consideration. I'm sure there's a few questions that might be needing to be clarified. So at this time, I'll open it up for questions, and then we'll hear from Toya and Dino.
I don't have a question, Nelson, but just a comment.
Go ahead, Gabe.
Go ahead, Gabe.
No, I was just gonna say, thanks for the work and the extra effort in putting that video together, and more importantly, thanks for all the thought and the effort that you put into the plan to be able to come back and at least start looking at pods or cross or whatever. But it's you've definitely demonstrated that you have put a lot of thought and planning into how to do this safely. So.
Thank you, Gabe. Thank you. Can't take all the credit. I have a great team behind me. So thank you, everybody.
Mr. Diaz,
Yes,
it
sir.
might have been an oversight, but you list that the testing of participants when they show up to a practice, but you don't mention that the coach also gets tested, with at least the temperature and the same questions.
Yes, they would have to test themselves at that point because they are part of that pod.
Well, they actually get
If you could
tested when they
add
come
that-
onto campus.
Yeah, that's true.
No. but either way, when there's these practices that we have that are outside of school days and all that kind of stuff, it would be good for them to test themselves as well as document that was done.
Yes, that's
other than
definitely
that-
an understanding.
Okay. The other thing was, I read the letter that was included, Mr. Burnett, and so I'm looking forward to the discussion related to that part. But you also included a list of the students that are failing, and that was mind-blowing. Certainly the freshmen and the sophomores were, it was just very scary to see that.
It is. It
so
is.
at some
It
point,
is definitely our belief that coaches and teachers and adults in these kids' life are of vital importance to them in their academic success and social emotional success. So in trying to combat that situation, we included a little bit there at the end where Mr. Martinez was talking to them about it, but we've gone above a step even further, in which all our head coaches are creating their own classrooms via Google. We have started that so that they're available for the students through that. We've also included in our plans that if a student is not attending or does not attend classes, that student cannot participate. So we are trying to help on the academic and social emotional side by being a little proactive in that area.
Yeah, and Mr. Mr. Burnett makes that reference in his letters, and I appreciate that. I kind of wonder what the rest of the population is in terms of those are attending schools as to D's and F's and what's going to happen. I've asked that before. But the other part was the part where the guy tested positive.
Yes.
The last one. What happened after that? We didn't see a closure to that.
So after he tests positive, he's got to go home. He's got to, if that student has a temperature, they have to go see a doctor, right? They're not allowed back until they get clearance that this was either allergies or anything else. If the doctor says that student has to have a COVID test, then obviously they have to be tested, and then they would have to quarantine 14 days. It would be no different than a teacher coming and being in contact. They would follow the same process.
So if the person tested positive, would then all the participants that day have to quarantine themselves, including
at that
the coach?
point, yes, sir. At that, if that person that was within that pod tests positive, then yes, we would have to make sure that everybody in that pod is aware that they get tested, and that they're out for 14 days minimum.
And my concern is that tests. One is that the person has to go take the test right away. Two is that usually there's like a 2-day wait for the results. So there could be possibly 3 days that the rest of the people can be exposed and spreading.
Right. Just like in any situation where we have our teachers coming in at that point, those are things that of course, that's just the turnaround. I mean, if we had a faster testing, we'd be able to do that. But that's the reason for the 9-to-1 pods. That's the reason for it, because that we're able to contact trace, and we're able to see who was in that pod and who might have been exposed at that moment. That's also the reason why we still have the 6-foot lines. I don't know if you're able to see them, but they are marked on the floor. That's why there's still that 6 feet social distancing. It doesn't look like it on the field from that angle, but all of those cones are 6 feet. And that's why all students still have to wear their masks, whether they're exercising or not.
Have we identified the quickest methods of getting results back and kind of point people in the direction?
So
of
we do
those?
have a registration link that we're all using. We register, and then usually once we get tested, our results are within 2 to 3 days. I've heard that there is a rapid test, but you have to be, but you have to have symptoms. You have to be showing symptoms in order to be able to be given that test. So,
but a fever would be one.
a high temperature would be one. So that would mean that the student would have to go right away to the doctor after we call the parents. That would be their responsibility to get them there. Unfortunately, from that point, we don't have any control.
Wow. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions about that? Anything that you saw in the video that might need a little more explanation?
So just
Okay.
for my clarification, Mr. Diaz, if
Yes.
this is Gabe, if one person in a pod were to have an elevated temperature, a sore throat, or whatever other symptom they may be showing, you would have the opportunity to shut down that pod for however long it took until that person tested positive twice or
course.
whatever until they were no longer contagious. I mean, you would shut that pod down, right?
Yes, sir. That pod would be shut down.
Okay.
And
Okay,
one more question, Mr. Diaz, I apologize. What would you do if a student shows up that has an excuse for not wearing a mask?
We would still require a face shield.
Okay,
We would definitely still require a face shield. At that point, that's the law. Those are the rules. We have to give them the opportunity to participate, but we would require a face shield.
very good. Thank you.
And we do have face shields and we do have additional masks. What we showed was everything that the NMA guidelines allow us to be able to do. Nothing outside the scope was shown to you. So anything that was allowable by the NMA and the governor's guidelines is what we were able to show to you. At this time, if there are no further questions, I'm going to turn it over to Toya and Dino. I'm very proud of them. They're working on their civic duties. So they're old students of mine. So I'm really proud to hear and see them out here. So Toya, you're muted at the moment.
I'll go first. Can you guys hear me?
Hey, Dino. Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Board President, members of the board, and Mr. Mendoza, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys tonight on behalf of students at Cobre High School. My name is Dino Peru, and I'm president of student council and co-president of the senior class. We are asking for you to allow us to start practicing for the upcoming seasons in a safe and responsible way. We submitted letters to your board packets from parents and students. I hope you had opportunities to read those. Some of the things that we're focusing on is like we're missing opportunities in this year. Especially us as seniors. It's our last chance for like sports and all stuff in high school. But especially like scholarships and stuff. That's how some kids get to school or get to college. Excuse me. But because some kids aren't, they're not good in school. And that's not bad, but that's how some kids get to school. And some kids don't have the money to get to college. So that's how they get there through sports. And just by not practicing and not starting up, we're just falling behind other schools that we play against, other schools that we compete against. And we're more probable to injury, honestly. Because we're not practicing. We're not when we start up. We're not going to be in shape. We're not going to be in playing shape. And us as a small school. There's no room for injury. And we just. I think we need to start practicing. Just at least start practicing. Because we're not going to be traveling nowhere. We'll just be here in town. We're going to be getting tested when we get to the video show. We're going to be. Our temperatures are going to be taken when we get to the field. And we're going to be taking precautions. I think we should at least be able to start practicing so we're not so far behind and we're not missing opportunities. And then how Ms. Acosta was saying, like our mental health, some students, I've talked to some of my friends and just, how she was saying about the mental health, it's true. It's a fact. And And then the academics, how Mr. Diaz was saying, I mean, I think sports would motivate some students because, I mean, you're supposed to have you got to have your grades up to play. You can't have an F in your report cards or anything. So, I mean, I think that would give some students motivation. And I mean, and like for band students, I mean, we have so many athletes and so many band members in our school. And then I think if we go back to school whenever that happens, I mean, eventually or hopefully, I mean, I think that would motivate students as well too, because I mean, they're back in school. Because I mean, online it's sometimes hard. I mean, sometimes you can't get on class. Sometimes you cut out. Sometimes you lag out. I mean, sometimes you can't hear. So I mean, I think whenever we're able to go back to school, I mean, I think that'd be good. I mean, because I mean, some kids learn better that way. Some kids can't learn online. They don't understand it. And I mean, that's not a bad thing. I mean, I think they would learn better in school. And I mean, like seeing that from talking to other people and just seeing that. But I think at least if we start practicing, I mean, I think that would be a good starting point, at least to start practicing. Because I mean, we're not traveling nowhere. We'll just be in our pods, our 9-to-1 pods, and I mean, we'll be getting our temperatures taken every time we get there. Because I mean, I just think how I was saying we're falling behind because all our other surrounding schools are practicing already. Some of them, I mean, like Silver's already in school. They're hybrid. So I mean, I think we're falling behind, and I think we're missing opportunities for scholarships and just to be successful. I mean, we learn. I mean, academics. I understand academics are important, and they come first and stuff. But I think we learn lessons in sports. I mean, we get stuff from sports for life, like to be successful in life. Sometimes that's what helps some students, some kids, some people be successful in life. So I mean, I just think at least if we can start like practicing, or I mean, whatever. I mean, I don't know. I hope you guys take all that into consideration when you guys vote. Just so, I mean, I just think we should start at least practicing. And I mean, I think that would be a good starting point to move forward with stuff. So.
Thank you, Dino.
Do you guys have any questions?
Just thank you, Dino. And we'd like to see things get started as soon as possible too. And I think that goes for everyone. But you were talking also contact sports, or are you talking?
I mean, whatever sports are able to start at that time. I mean, because I mean, I know like when we go into the pods, we're not going to be, I don't know, like, I mean, we'll be able to like in our pods practice and stuff, but I mean, I know we won't be able to like contact or anything like that.
At this
but
point,
I mean,
there
I
would be
think like
no competition,
showing, I mean,
no scrimmaging, none of that is allowable. It's just conditioning. You're able to use a few equipment.
And that's why I'm saying just hopefully we can practice.
Yes,
because we're not traveling enough.
Most of it will be just conditioning, and that's about it right now as it stands with the state and MMA.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
I think that would be a good starting point for us, just to get stuff going. Hopefully.
Dino, this is Mr. Mendoza. I thank you for coming on and being sincere in your talking today. Appreciate it. And I do recommend, and I do want to open the pods as soon as possible. And we'll see how the board wants tonight. Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
And
Toya, do you have anything to add?
Listening to me. I mean, no, I just think that's starting point.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
I didn't hear you,
Dino.
One more thing, just to add to a little bit of what Mr. Peru was saying over here, what Dino was saying. It is one of my biggest worries is students and injury. We've seen it in the NFL. When they started right away without having anything in preseason, we continue to see those things and injuries happen in the NFL. One of those things that I had talked to Mr. Mendoza about was if volleyball was able to go, if there's certain things we're able to, just let's say, for example, if we were able to have gotten started tomorrow and in a safe way, as far as COVID is concerned, I was not going to allow our athletes to play for at least 3 weeks prior to that. So we would have canceled a lot of games, 3 to 4 weeks, just to ensure that our kids were physically ready and we would be able to make sure that they were safe when they would compete. So just wanted to add a little bit more on that. At this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Mendoza unless you guys have any other questions.
Thank you for putting it together, Toya.
Nelson, again, thank you. Maureen, Sandra, for getting everything together. Any other questions, board members, before we talk about our position, where we're going to be at? I'm ready to make a recommendation, Mr. Board President, if it's okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Mendoza.
After hearing all the discussions and of course, looking at that video, it clears up my mind that we have a lot of thought into these pods that are going to take place. I just have one question, Mr. Diaz.
Yes.
The gym off limits, correct?
Yes. Inside in our main gym would be off limits. We could introduce the weight room later on, just based on the numbers that are happening around us. Anything indoors, if we needed to be, we would make sure that it was off limits for now.
Oh, in our discussion, Mr. Diaz, on the past few weeks and days, is this coming Monday too early to start these pods if the board approves?
If the board approves, we would be ready to go on Monday.
Okay. With that being said from Mr. Diaz, I would like to put this either twofold. Board members, if you want to feel comfortable by voting this action or leaving it to the responsibility of the superintendent to allow Mr. Diaz to proceed with the pods and supervise the pods on every other day, or we rotate the supervision for CDC compliance and so forth. So I'd like to hear from the board members, what's their preference on this? We'll start with you, Mr. Sepula.
Well, I would be willing to go ahead with the pods, and of course leave it up to you for your recommendation to Mr. Diaz to make sure that that everybody is in compliance. That's my big concern, is compliance and having somebody test positive and that has been around and then having to shut it down. That is my concern.
Well, I'm willing to take the responsibility, Nelson, if it's okay with you. But, Mr. Guardiana, go ahead, please.
I thought it was pretty well established that the board needed to approve this before it went forward. I support the recommendation, but I would think that we should follow the protocol and have the board approve it.
All right, is Mr.
Yeah,
Holguin?
the board's going to vote on it here in a little bit. That was just my comment.
Okay.
Mr. Holguin, do you have a comment?
I'm prepared to vote. I appreciate the presentation.
Well, with that being said, the administration recommends that you approve our high school athletes to go ahead and start practicing. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's conditioning with the pods as presented by Nelson and company tonight. To start Monday, right? Nelson, to start Monday.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You heard the recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
So moved. This Gabe.
Motion by Mr. Holguin.
Second, this is Gilbert.
Second by Mr. Guadiana. Any other comments or questions? Call for the vote. Mr. Holguin,
Yes.
Mr. Guadiana,
Yes.
Mr. Cordova.
I guess I'm part of this meeting. I wasn't asked to comment, but I'll vote yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carries.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moves us to item C.
Item C is the report Finance Committee, and we'll start with Terry Hogan and Gilbert Guardiana and Mr. Sepúlveda. Terry?
Yes, sir, I'm here. Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Mr. Mendoza, and everyone. From the Finance Committee, what needs to be presented is what was sent out by the Public Education Department as an adjustment to our State Equalization Guarantee, or SEG, which is our operational funding. So what was discussed in the last finance meeting and presented was what you have in your packets is the revenue information, how the PED. Now, they didn't put out a 910B5 on this, which is what specifies the decrease based on the adjustment to the unit value that was done in the special session. So if you look in your packet, it had the 2021 projected budget as of 4/29, which was the original budget was submitted. And then the next section is the adjusted 2021 as of 9/10, when they gave us the September SCG adjustment. If you notice on there, the information, the unit value went from 4758.10 to 4531.74. So if you see on regular ed, we had a decrease of 319,000, special ed 115,000 and some, bilingual 28,000, elementary fine arts 7,000, at risk 45,000, miscellaneous units including small size adjustment, and this is all due to the adjustment in the unit value. That was 114,000. Now, if you look at elementary PE, that was completely taken out in the special session, which means that it was adjusted $186,000 to zero, which that means there was a reduction in 186. In those program costs, it was $815,000 decrease. Now, what was up in the air at that point and not fully approved was the extended learning time and the K-5. So the K-5, there was not even an estimate. On the ELT, there was an estimate of 437,000 adjusted from 417 for a total SEG adjustment of $1,074,917. So from there, the budget needs to be adjusted by that $1 million. Now, excuse me, we got our October adjustment barely this morning. So that made a difference, and they approved our K-5 and also our extended learning. So that's gonna require an additional adjustment, and it'll adjust back up. So we will go back to the Finance Committee with that information, that table, before that we recommend an adjustment to the SCG. So at this point, there is no recommendation as far as an approval of the decrease, because what it looks like from preliminary numbers, the K-5 program was an increase, and so the preliminary adjustment will only be a negative $37,000. With that, though, because those funds are earmarked for K-5 and extended learning, we have some work to do on the budget to make sure that we allow for those costs to be allocated according to the program costs. So we will come back after the next finance meeting and present what the decrease bar will be. The decrease bar or the budget adjustment is due to PED by November 30th. So we still have a little bit of time to work on this. So at this time, we won't be recommending a decrease of the $1 million at this point. It'll only be moving money to allow for those program costs that are K-5 and extended learning. As I said, there was a decrease in the unit value, so those decreases do exist. Where it's going to be necessary to move the money is to make sure that the K-5 and the extended learning program, that there are sufficient funds to run those programs as required by the Public Education Department. Just as a information piece in reviewing the budget, we have to recall that in the special session, they also reduced a 4% increase in base salary from 4% to 1%. And when the initial budget was built, it was built with a 4% increase. So those line items will need to be reviewed because there's likely those areas that have a slight excess that we can shuffle into the appropriate programs. So we'll continue to look at that through the Finance Committee, and Mr. Sepulveda, we'll build the agenda for the October meeting, and then we'll go from there if that's your recommendation.
Okay with me, Chair.
Does anybody have any questions?
When would we expect to get that information so we have time to review it before the budget meeting? Fine.
As soon as PED puts out, because they put out the preliminary table that shows the decrease, but they did not show the program costs and the approval on the K-5 yet. They haven't actually put numbers to that. The numbers that I have are just bottom line numbers, so they're not within the program, so we can't actually make those adjustments until the PED gives us the information on how the breakdown works. And they said they would be sending it here shortly. We received this morning the preliminary chart, and they should have it out by this week, hopefully.
So like the regular ed total, the special ed, bilingual, the miscellaneous units, those are pretty well established.
Right. Those are what they are. Yes.
So can we start receiving those as soon as possible, and then we'll deal with the other ones when they comes up?
You have that. This is the information.
Yeah, I have the amounts that's being reduced, but I don't have what are the options for that reduction, and I thought that would be more of what the Finance Committee would be looking at.
Yes, the expenditure side, yes. So we'll get that out. We'll get that out to you as soon as we set everything up for the next finance meeting.
Okay, if those are available as soon as they can, I'd like to have them rather than waiting for the last one that isn't ready. Also, you mentioned one of the items being lined out, and I didn't follow that, which would it had to do with elementary schools.
What's that?
You mentioned one of the line items being zeroed out, and it was related to
it's elementary PE.
elementary. Where would that be on here?
Down on the miscellaneous units, like down after small size, and then you go down right before program costs. There's an elementary PE line.
I see elementary middle school.
Go down
Okay,
further.
I see it now. Okay.
So they It's been elementary PE has been one of the programs that they funded kind of at a steady rate for many years, and they've not made any adjustments, and now they decided that it just wouldn't be funded. And that's in the statutes from the special session.
Okay. Any other question? Thank you, Terry.
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Mendoza.
We're in the public input, Mr. Sepulveda.
Okay. Victor, is there anything? Hello, Victor.
Yes, sir. I was getting back on the YouTube portion. There was a public input on from Anna Treviso. She was asking, my question is because some kids got the computers weeks later, no fault on their own and internet. How is the school addressing this? I am aware that there was a package given, but there are kids who have no way of getting there. There are kids who can't help that. What then? Other than that, everything else has been pretty positive. There's just a bunch of gratitude towards our teachers on the efforts that they're doing.
Okay.
Are there so many that they can't be read? Because I think in trying to keep with the Open Meetings Act, we should be able to hear what the comments were rather than paraphrasing or summarizing.
Quite a few of them. Did you see them in your package?
Oh yeah, I got those. I meant if there were any comments during the meeting that were made on the chat boxes or whatever. But yeah, I read as not all of them, clearly not all of them, but they were all pretty much universal in terms of wanting to see the action that we just made a little while ago. So I'm hoping there's some very good reactions to today's meetings. But was that it, Victor? There was nothing online?
You want me to read them all to you? I'll read them all to you. There's no problem there. I'll go back.
How many do you have, Victor?
Probably like 15.
Okay, are they quick ones? I would think so.
It's all from the same people mostly. Anna Treviso again. Under the circumstances, I believe the teachers are doing the best they can. God bless our teachers. I just responded, thank you, Anna. Your response. And recognizing our staff's efforts, we are in this together. And then Anna again replied, I truly wish the board would maybe ask our teachers and parents what they think and how many would send their kids. I feel like knowing numbers would show how us parents feel. And then Arthur Quintana, God bless all of our teachers that are working day in and out. You guys deserve the best recognition above all. And I thanked him for that. Frank Arias posted, is some emergency response team being developed with the help with Mrs. Acosta to help mitigate the COVID problem in integrating reopening of the school. Anna Treviso posted, every teacher should also be receiving some sort of hazardous pay. Dora Simpson, thank you, Annette Acosta, for all your hard work. Please consider reaching out to parents for assistance if that is possible. Thanks also to the teachers and staff. Then the one I just mentioned about Anna Treviso on the computers and packages. And then Arthur Quintana, great team effort. He accommodated the video as well. And then if something is being addressed for students who are failing in their classes, that's the last one.
That's the kind of information that certainly we should get at every meeting if it's been provided during the meeting to comply with the Open Meetings Act, but also it's also good to hear.
Okay. Thank you, Victor.
Yes, sir.
Moved us to administration, Mr. Mendoza.
Okay, item under administration is application facilities master plan. This is an action item. Mr. Peru?
Yes, sir. Board President, members of the board, Mr. Mendoza. The reason the facility master plan is an action item is that we need approval from the board to be able to proceed with it. The facilities master plan will take place if we are approved. We have to have Mr. Sepulveda and Mr. Mendoza sign it. And I have to send a hard copy and then also email it by October 16th. This will begin the process for our facilities master plan procedure. It'll be a percentage. I will present all that if we are approved, and I will present, because we have a 60-40 split almost, that we have to pay 40%. The PSFA will pay 60% of the facilities master plan, because it'll run close to about $40,000 to get this thing taken care of.
Thank you.
So is this to begin a facilities master plan compilation, or is it?
Yes, it's what it is all the facility master plan, they are scheduled for every 3 years. We will, once we implement this plan and put it in place, we will have it for 3 years. Every 3 years, we have to reapply so that we have help from PSFA, so that we won't have to pay for it all out of our own pocket. PSFA, like I said, pays the bigger portion of it. And then we pay the smaller percentage. But that is so that we can get help. Once we have the facility master plan, it gives us the opportunity to go after some of the capital outlay money and some of those natures. That way they have a copy of everything that we have, because what happens is they have an inventory of all of our facilities, everything that we have on our facilities.
Can I receive a copy of the old one or the current one?
Sure. Yeah, it's expired, because that's why we're reapplying for the new one, but I will get you a copy of it. It's a 3-ring binder, and I can get it to you whenever you'd like. That way you can look at it and see what it's like.
When did it expire?
Last year. No. 17.
Okay.
18. I think it's 17.
Okay. I appreciate it.
No problem. And then, one of the things is, because this also takes place with some of the things that we're looking at right now, because PSFA has a few of the items that we have to do. And one with Public Schools Finance Authority is they help us with many of the things. Like they just sent out a questionnaire that was for, as a survey and a questionnaire for the MERC 13 air filtration systems. One of the things that we're looking at is we normally use like 8 and 9s in our old systems and 10s and 12s on our new systems. What has happened is they sent this survey and this questionnaire out just to the fact, because some of the schools that already put the MERF 13s, I guess the density of those filters is affecting the units, and it's burning out some of the units because of the density of the filters. So they sent it all out because they want to know what we have, so that they can possibly help us, so that we can upgrade whatever we need to be able to handle those filters for the COVID-19. So that this plan is part of that. So we already did the questionnaire and the survey and sent it back. We worked on it this past weekend and got that sent to them so that they could have that in place also.
Along those lines, that kind of information is good to know, and that's the kind of thing I've been saying we should get on a continuing basis in terms of assessing preparedness.
Okay.
So we can recognize, some of the barriers, and certainly you might have to I'd appreciate that as kind of a standing report with the preparedness,
okay,
the facilities needs.
Okay, sounds good.
I would echo that,
Gabe. Also, I would what I'll do is I'll share the spreadsheet that they sent and what we had to fill out. That way you see how the system works also, because of the fact that the spreadsheet is pretty lengthy, but I mean, I think you can piece it together as you're scrolling through it, but it'll show you what we have and how old our systems are and what we have to currently upgrade. Because a lot of people think, well, we rebuilt these schools, but I mean, you look back, I mean, some of the first one we did was Snell, and it's already been 12 years since we rebuilt that school. And so they're coming up for upgrades on some of the systems.
12 years ago? They rebuilt Snell 12 years ago?
That was a question for you, George.
Yes, ma'am, we did, Toya. It's been 12 years. No problem. So anyways, along those lines, I will get that included so you guys can look at those also, and then that way you're familiarized with the systems that we have.
Thank you, George. Mr. Mendoza.
The administration recommends that you approve the application for Facilities Master Plan as presented by George.
You heard the recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move. This is Gilbert.
Motion by Mr. Guadiana, second.
I'll second. Escape.
Second by Mr. Holguin. Any other question? Call for the vote. Mr. Holguin,
Yes.
Mr. Guadiana,
Yes.
Mr. Cordova,
Yes.
myself, yes, motion passes. Moves us to superintendent report.
Under item A, discuss status on policy review. Just a quick reminder that I spoke to Dr. Don Williams and so did Ms. Davis. And he says that, again, he wants to know how stressed out you are in working with these policies. And I assured him that the word that I've gotten is that they're working diligently and going forward to get it done. But just a reminder to keep Ms. Davis up to date on any changes or any concerns you have so she can be documenting and sending them to Mr. Williams so he can put it together. And he says hopefully we can have a workshop or a meeting here sometime in November, the early part of November. And that's just for information to you all. Diana, now, do you have any comments?
Hello, Mr. President, members of the board, and Mr. Mendoza, and all of the rest that are there. I just wanted to point out, speaking with Mr. Mendoza and Dr. Williams, just a reminder, the most important thing is to really focus on the ones that we looked at, the targeted ones that were marked with black. Those are the ones that we really need to review. And of course, you can go ahead and review the rest, but he really wanted us to really focus on those and make sure that you're thoroughly reading through those first.
I have just about gone through all the ones that he check marked. I think there's a couple more that I need to go through that. But I think that those that he check marked, there's not much we can do about it because they're either law or statute or federal law, one or the other. And so there's not much we can do with those. So those should go pretty quick in that. The other ones is the ones who kind of need to tweak to fit his recommendation, I guess.
Okay. Mr. Cordova, are you online? How's it going with you?
I'm done with mine, and I've got a few that I need to take to Ms. Davis in the morning.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Holguin?
Making progress, getting close.
Okay. Guardiana?
I hadn't reviewed any of them yet. I was waiting to hear that the changes have been made. I don't want to start out with my own changes. I'd like to see what the staff are having, but if there's plenty of them to review, I'll start that review. How many are there to review? Where are we, like, percent-wise?
I have no idea. Ms. Davis, do you have an idea? Because you should receive them.
There's several of them. I don't know exactly how many policies we've got, but there's quite a few of them.
Yes, there is quite a few of them, and I haven't received any at this point. So I guess I'll receive some from Mr. Cordova tomorrow, and then, like I said, as I get them, I can compile them, and then I can give them to our board president, and that way he can have a meeting and go over them with all of you.
Okay.
Do you have a
Any
timeline?
questions?
Is there a timeline that you think has been set yet or not yet?
No, sir. He says we can even go as late as to the end of November. But he says the sooner you can get as much of the changes were proposed to Ms. Davis and to him, he can put it together so he can call a meeting of us, a work session. In other words, where we can, and it'll be virtual. So that's where we're at. So Diana, is that correct? That's what he's told me.
Yes.
I don't want to pressure you guys, but it's for your policy. And he says, really, we can take all our time, but he says, let's get it done. So that's what he's saying. Okay.
Yes, I think that the sooner we get it done, the better, because then our policies will be up to date.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for the information, you guys. And Ms. Davis, just thank you for all your help too, okay? Appreciate that. The next item that I have is just a reminder, the next board meeting will be October 26th, 5 p.m. on that. And we go to student representative report.
Well, hold on, before we leave that, Mr. Mendoza, can I just mention a couple of things real quick? Just
Sure.
before Ms. Ortiz gets on. One of the things I wanted to mention also, and it's a positive thing, hopefully, with Mr. Wayana's, excuse me, concerns on the Hurley Portable, we went over there to make sure, because I wanted to make sure also that everything was completed with the leveling and things like that. And we did find that the building is unlevel in a couple of areas by like 1/4 of an inch. Johnny and I went over and measured, we got underneath it, and we checked the beams. The beams are good and everything, but we are gonna have to level a couple of areas in both the classrooms. There's like 3 areas in the north side of the classroom, and then on the south side, there's 2 areas that we have to totally level. Like I said, in most of the areas, they were like 1/4 inch. There was one area that was like 3/8 off, so we will get that. I visited with D&G Construction. They are currently gonna re-level our old alternative school because we have to re-level it. So I called him, and he is gonna go by there and look at it and see what it'll take to get it re-leveled for us correctly. And he said he'd have me something by today, but I didn't get a chance to visit with him. So I will make contact with him this week so we can get moving on that, hopefully, and get that taken care of also before we move on the other things also. Okay, I just wanted to mention that, and thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Joanna. And then that way we looked into it, and hopefully we'll be able to get the thing taken care of correctly.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay, George.
I saw it
George,
as,
don't forget. Oh, I'm sorry, Gilbert.
I'm sorry,
Don't forget to bring that up for procurement tomorrow in our meeting, okay?
Okay, yes, sir.
Remember, please don't
yeah,
forget
I
that.
saw it
Sorry, Mr.
5/8
Morales.
5/8 of an inch off in a couple of places, and certainly
couple.
the centers were like peaked. So there was certainly a tottering of the level in the centers. But I appreciate you looking at that. And on a temporary basis, can you shore up the stairway to that? That's just an accident waiting to happen.
Oh, with our blocks in the front?
Yeah, blocks.
Yes, we're gonna, hopefully, if everything goes well, if we can get that thing leveled, and then they can put the skirting on, because D&G Construction are also the ones that got the bid to do the skirting. Once he gets the skirting in, we have a lot of the ramp stuff there already, and then some of the other materials coming in, so we can shore everything up, and it'll have a nice walkway in the front. That's what we're hoping we can do. So we had the blocks just temporarily so that we could put the skirting around it. We should actually probably just remove them until we do that.
Should just build a wooden one that you can move.
Yeah. Well, I'll talk to Johnny, see if we can't do something temporarily, see if we don't have something temporarily we can put over there. Yes, sir.
Okay,
I will look into that. You bet. No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, George. And now our student rep. Go ahead. Toya.
Good evening, board. I want to say thank you on behalf of all the athletes for approving us to start with the pods. I know a lot of us are going to be very happy about that. And then the only thing I had was last board meeting, I believe, when I had the technical difficulties. I don't know if you guys saw the comment, but it does happen during classes all the time, almost every day, I'm sure. And it would just be nice if that wasn't happening. I don't know if it's the platform that we have, but I don't know what the status is on moving to Canvas yet. Because last time we spoke about it, it was supposed to happen in the next couple of weeks. And here we are 2 months later, still having the same problems. And that is
Thank you, Toya.
Heard you better this time, but you still broke up. And I've heard the same, my kids have the same complaint in terms of, but it's more of speed related issues with the new books. They rather not use the new Chromebooks. They'd rather use the iPads because they work much better. So that's a consistent complaint that I've heard. And I think Ms. Ortiz is agreeing, but there's also a concern that about rolling out the new platform. I understand the high school could benefit greatly by the new platform, but the rolling out of it throughout all the schools, I think, is going to cause a major concern. People are finally getting used to it. And this is the area where we're going to have kids changing rather than the high school students that are more adaptable to that change. Certainly the elementary schools are going to find it difficult, and to put them through the stress of having them move to a separate system is your call. But I'm just, what I've heard is that that is going to be a very stressful situation to put the parents and the students through.
Thank you.
Thank you, Toya.
Thank you.
Okay, this time we go to public input. Victor, is there anything else?
Yes, sir. There was just Ana Treviso replied. She just said, you know, is there a reason why you guys don't answer whatever's brought up in public input? I just asked if she could please send an email, and I'll send it to the school board members if it doesn't get addressed during the meeting.
What was the question, Victor?
There was many that I read out. Would you like me to read them all again from her?
Is that the only new one? You read the other ones already?
I read all of them to you. The only other the last one that just came in was from Arthur Quintana, just saying thank you for hearing our voices. Transparency is so important. So thank you all for addressing the public's and students' comments. God bless.
Okay.
Along with the question that was the new one that was posed as far as why don't we respond to questions that are raised, I think one of the best examples of that was when Toya made the comment about what are we going to do with students that are failing, and how are we going to address that? After a long silence, Mr. Sepulveda responded by saying, we'll take that under advisement. I think that was something noteworthy to say that, you know, we'll prepare a formal response and a plan to address that issue. Certainly it's still going on. It's very important. But that also dissuades the participation in the meetings if questions, especially as substantive as that, are answered with, we'll take that under advisement. I hope that we could go forward with a plan that addresses them and say it'll be on the next agenda.
Mr. Guadiana, I can answer. At the high school, we have people calling parents and students. We have Tony Sosa involved, who's doing home checks. And so that's how we're addressing it at the high school level. So we're always making parent contact.
And that would be wonderful to hear, even as a response to the question as is asked, or on the next agenda that would prepare such a response.
And we do also have the teachers that are still accepting work and working with the students, trying to be flexible with their grades as well.
And along with that would be some kind of assessment as to the improvements that we're making, because obviously we need to chart how many kids do need help, how many kids are failing, and then kind of make an assessment as to what it is we're doing is effective or not.
I had one more comment come through from Frank Arias. Can some type of resiliency classes be developed for students that are having a hard time coping emotional and academically? That was the last one that just came in.
Okay. Well, those questions are passed on to Mr. Mendoza, and he routes them to the right person that can help them, because we're not the experts that can help them on that. Okay. Anything else? Items for next agenda.
This is Gabe. I
Go
got
ahead,
one
Gabe.
for public input. I know that it's come up in my household once or twice, but you know that on some occasions it's easier for the kids to print, say, a sheet of math homework or whatever that they need to get done, you know, to be able to work out the problem, you know, with a pen and pencil on a piece of paper, actually, versus on the computer screen. And I'm just wondering if this is more of a question, you know, I'm wondering if that's becoming an issue at all. You know, are teachers asking kids to print? And, you know, because the first thing that came to my mind was like, how many kids actually have access to a printer to be able to print something that actually they need to work by hand? Can they you know, I don't know the answer to that. I'm just guessing that there's probably a handful, probably quite a few kids that don't have printers, that, you know, may need to print stuff on occasion to get their homework done right. So just
Sandra, you want to address that?
Yeah, Gabriel, at the high school, I know for chemistry and physics and A&P, Dr. Ludicky has emailed us certain charts and we print it and we give them as packets to students who need them if they don't have the printing option. We also invite them to email it to us so we can print it for them and then either submit it to the teacher or hand it to the teacher. So they just need to contact the front office and we can do what we need to. But there are times where we printed the periodic table for chemistry, and so the students who needed a copy of it came to the front office and picked up a copy.
And my kids have had that problem.
Okay,
and
that's great, Sandra. Thank you.
You're welcome.
My kids have had that problem with some teachers requiring printed out forms to be taken a picture of and submitted. Others say don't do that. Make sure you fill out the ones that are on the system. And part of the dilemma is that there's no uniform way of submitting things. And so the expectations are different based on the schools and the teachers. And that's one thing I hope would become standardized, but we'll see.
Mr. Guardiana, there is a principals meeting tomorrow at 11, at 11 o'clock, Jose? At 11 o'clock, and they'll address this.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you. Also, sorry to interrupt, but Mr. Guadiana, if you would like some one-on-one on any of these devices or need some sort of technology answer, feel free to reach out because we have tons of information to provide to you. We can meet with you. We can see what types of issues you guys are experiencing on these Chromebooks, but majority of them they are filtered because we have to be in compliance with SIPA. And a lot of these kids can't really go out and do what they want because it's monitored. And that's one of the biggest things we have right now is accessibility with everybody in the county. You know, everything's shifting to working from home and remote learning from home. It's really straining the internet's infrastructure. The burden being felt on our network, home networks, internet service providers like Xfinity, CenturyLink, Western New Mexico Communications, even the mobile networks, you know, they're getting hammered daily with the amount of people that are on, and that does cause some latency issues. And we deal with that daily. I assist maybe 15 to 20 parents a day trying to get their children online and connected and making sure that they're not missing out.
I appreciate that. You mentioned HIPAA requirements. What HIPAA requirements will we be talking about?
It's not HIPAA, it's a Child Internet Protections Act.
Okay. The other part too is that the other computers work faster than there's a noticeable difference based on the computer you're using. And I'd appreciate an opportunity to have a discussion with you if that's okay with Mr. Mendoza.
That's okay, Mr. Go ahead and Victor, you guys arrange to call each other or whatever? We'll take care of that? Okay.
Sure. Are you going to be in the office anytime, Victor?
Yes, sir. I'll be there tomorrow from 7 to 4.
Okay. I'll see if we can get together via a call or something.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Could you send me your phone number, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Victor.
Okay. Items for next agenda.
I have none at this time, sir.
Okay. I have a question. Would the status on school reentries be on the agenda again?
Yeah, we Mr. Guardiano, I thought we said we'd have that constantly. It's going to be on the agenda from now on. No, I was just talking about new ones.
Okay.
Sorry, Gabe.
And the other one would be that could we have a section that relates to technology related to the reentry, specifically technology?
Victor, would you be available to present that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Right. Any other thing?
No, sir.
Motion to adjourn.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Cordova, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
This is Gabe. I had another comment.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, so kind of just to close out, I wanted to say thank you to Sandra for answering that question. And it sounds like we have some limited capability to, provide printed paper for kids, but I'd like to just say that it would be concerning to me that if, more and more teachers were requiring the kids to print stuff, we should really consider that and at least talk to the principals and teachers about that to, remind them that not all kids have that capability. So I appreciate the response to that, and I'll leave it at that. The other thing is I had a couple of comments from public. One of them was that, and I think I sent an email out to request this, but that there is nowhere that the board's contact information is listed on Cobre's webpage, Facebook page, any place. And I don't know if that's something that everybody's willing to give, but it sounds like, people wanted to send emails of support or concern to board members, and there was no place to find their email addresses or contact numbers. So I don't know if that's
If I
something
may,
that we can
Gabriel?
address and get that
Gabriel, if I
information
may,
out
please?
there for the public.
Gabriel, I'm sorry, Mr. Hogan. On our
go ahead,
website,
Mr.
our
Mendoza.
official homepage, there is under the board where they go to directories, they can click on there and it lists all our board and your contact, okay? So we can help them with that, but they can call Irene here in our direct line and she'll provide contact information.
Okay, I did a little searching myself. I didn't see that on our board link on the internet. So
I'll check
take a
into it in the
look
morning, Gabe, but I that's what I access to get that, but Victor, can you comment on that? Is it on there?
It's not there. I'm on the webpage right now. This is Gilbert, and it's not there.
I see that. Okay, Victor, will you check into it and let me know so I can let the board know? Maureen, can you comment on the Facebook? Is there something there that the parents might pick up on information?
If it's approved by the board to put out that contact information, I could absolutely put it on the Facebook page and pin it to the top so that it's always available, not an issue.
I don't have Facebook, Maureen, so
Well, that's okay. I can put your email contact information, that kind of stuff can all be placed on there. I can just put it as like a flyer and just pin it to the top so it's always available. That's not a problem.
Okay.
Maureen, we have a Cobre Facebook.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and I do get a lot of communication through there. I'm sometimes answering parents' questions at 11:30 at night on Facebook, which I do not mind. I mean, we're here to serve the students and the parents. So it is used. Cobre Facebook is used quite frequently. And so I do monitor it as often as I can.
okay. We were adjourned, so have a good night, everybody. Goodbye.
Good night.
We're adjourned, Victor.
Good night, everybody.
Bye. Thank you, guys.
Good night.
Good night.